I was raised under the impression that I would be taking over the family business. However, recent events have caught me completely off guard, and I'm not really sure what I should do. Having seen people in similar circumstances post on here a while ago and get completely torn to shreds in the comment section, I don't know. I feel like I should establish a few things before you start skimming through this instead of actually reading it. First of all, I know that I'm speaking for a privileged position. I know. I'm not here complaining about the fact that I lived a very charming life. I've never had to worry about finding a job, let alone having food on the table or a roof over my house. I know how fortunate I've been in this lifetime, so please refrain from pointing out that as your only contribution if you choose to leave a comment. Secondly, this is not an invitation to bash my family. I love them. I've always have and hopefully always will. I'm just looking for some external perspective and maybe some advice on the situation that I'm about to explain. Try to keep it civil. I've seen how these things go, and I'm really not in the headspace to sift through troll comments. On the actual meat of the story, my family owns a few restaurants. My mother comes from a family of really good chefs and cooks, and my father came from a family with enough money to invest in these cooks. Long story short, my father invested in a few restaurants that did extremely well, and so he kept doing it over and over. My maternal grandparents have long since retired, and my mother never went back to work after my oldest sister was born. So, restaurants, while being a family business, have long since been my father's domain. He is not a cook by any stretch of the words, but his talent for business is undeniable. In just a few decades, he's founded a good chunk of restaurants across the state and built quite the reputation for himself. Ever since I could think, I've been fascinated with the family business. I loved everything about the restaurants, that we got to go whenever we wanted, and I absolutely adored being a part of the magic. As early as elementary school, I was helping out around the place, and particularly the one closest to my home. I'm not exaggerating when I say that I loved every minute of it. It doesn't matter if I was in the back scrubbing dishes or helping roll silverware before service, I loved it. And I knew that it was what I wanted to do, what I was born to do. My siblings never shared the sentiment, see. My older sister, though as much of a foodie as the rest of us, prefers staying firmly outside the kitchen, and our brother preferred staying as far as he physically could. So, neither of them ever took to the hustle and bustle inherent, and they didn't want to be part of the restaurant like I did, which is not an insult in any way. Their interests just did not align like that. Now, you should know that my father has always been obsessed with keeping the family business a family business, meaning keeping it in the family. It did not matter how promising of a protege he took on, the business would only go to someone in the family. Given my siblings' lack of interest and the fact that I was overflowing with it, I was always the obvious choice, or so I thought. My siblings and I have always been on the same page when it came to family business. Our fathers wanted us involved, and they didn't want to be involved. And I really wanted to be, so any restaurant-related task would always be relegated to me. They got to escape without being bugged about it too much, and I got to go every time. The amount of trade shows, meetings, interviews, any other business-related events I've attended over the year is honestly too much to count. I've been representing the business for years now whenever my father is not able to. I've even been the one to interview and hire a lot of the current staff. My siblings, on the other hand, Sadie and CJ, have lived their lives however they wanted to. Sadie currently lives in another state, and her husband and their daughters and CJ actually just drift from hobby to hobby, financed by our father, of course, but he seems to be having fun with it. I'm not trying to, talk either of them down, I promise. I'm just trying to establish that neither of them have shown any interest in the family business before. So, how did we get to my father announcing CJ as successor of his retirement party this past weekend? It's been all of 2 days, and I'm still reeling, so I don't blame you if you need a little bit of context here. My father is approaching his 70s. He's 67 now. He spent more than half his life building this business up to what it is, and he's ready to retire. He's been ready to retire for a while, but he's also a bit of a control freak who has somewhat of a trouble letting go. A few months ago, however, shortly after I got engaged, he sat the family down and told us that he was preparing to step down as the head of the business. Well, obviously, I was ecstatic. It was almost like the engagement present at the time. I figured that he saw that I was a grown-up and settling down, and maybe it was time for him to settle down too. He said he would be officially announcing his replacement at his retirement party, but I already had a pretty good idea of who it could be. Clearly, I was mistaken, but I'm so sure I'm not the only one. I've been receiving congratulations for weeks now. Even my mother and sister have wished me luck on the promotion that would surely be following my father's retirement. I've received verbal and text congratulations from several employees from different locations, and a few have even expressed how excited they were to finally see me take over. A couple of, the long-standing ones have even brought me flowers to the retirement party for me. Not for my father, but for me. All of us were shocked when he announced that CJ would be his successor. You know, the same CJ who had never known any interest in the family business in his 34 years on this planet. The same CJ who had never shown any interest in any business, to be honest. He doesn't even actually have a job. He just does whatever he feels like doing on our father's dime. I've always been happy to let CJ be CJ. It's never caused me any harm, so I never really cared what he got up to. This is what I care about. I left the retirement party in shambles. I was heartbroken and admittedly a little embarrassed. But most of all, I was confused. I don't understand the decision at all. I mean, Sadie is just as confused as I am, and our mother had her on FaceTime for the announcement, and she called me right after I got home, and she was just as shocked and caught off guard as me. From what was told to her, even Mom did not expect it. We had all been under the impression that Father was holding off, officially naming a successor because he liked the drama of it all. Not for something like this, though. The only person at the party who did not seem shocked was CJ, who just smiled and waved and hugged our father like this was a long-time thing coming, and he was overwhelmed with emotion. I was shocked that CJ even bothered to attend the party since he avoids anything to do with business, like the plague. I don't know what to make of this situation. I'm so sorry for this post. It's an absolute mess, I know it. I'm trying to sort things out, everything mentally, but all of it feels just so confusing. Betrayal, hurt. My fiancé thinks that I need to give myself time before I reach out to my father. So I'm trying that, but I feel like the longer I wait, the more questions I acquire. Maybe you guys will have some answers, maybe not. What's up, everybody? Mr. Relato here. So we do have a few updates to hop into, and man, this position that OP finds themselves in is ridiculous. I thought for sure OP was going to get ownership, CEO of the whole company. We're going to find out in update 1 what the heck's going on. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe for daily videos. Here is update number 1. Okay, wow, I didn't expect to be updating like this ever. But the comment section on my original post was very split, and my direct messages have been a minefield. So here I am. I'm not going to bother addressing comments about my character or a privilege that I already spoke about in my first post. But I do want to thank whoever commented or, actual normal things and offered support. I do appreciate you guys. So, I do also have an actual update. I spoke to my father, and it's been a week and a half since the retirement party, which was really more of an announcement of a future retirement party, since my father's still going to work while CJ shadows him. Most of my energy has been devoted to our newest location, so I admittedly have not been too attentive about what CJ's been up to, but some of the other employees have kept me posted without even asking me. Unsurprisingly, it's been difficult for him to get the hang of things. He started following our father around in the middle of the last week, and somehow in 1 week he's managed to make so many people mad, and the head chef at one of the locations so mad that he threatened to quit if CJ continued training there. Ellie, who's in charge of the front house at the location where CJ is at now, told me that she heard this directly from the chef's mouth. Hearing that, I had to talk to my father. 3 things were established during this said talk. Firstly, he wasn't changing his mind about CJ taking over. He just needed a bit of time to get the hang of things. Second, he had never intended for me to be his successor, though he was happy with the interest I shown and took on with the business. And third, my engagement is what spurred all of this on. Apparently, he had always intended for the business to go to CJ, but he knew that I was really invested in it. When I got engaged, he took it as me finally readying to leave the family, and started preparing for his retirement and for CJ to take over. Apparently, giving the business to me would not count as keeping it in the family, since I would eventually marry someone and join their family instead, while CJ would carry the family name. Never mind the fact that I don't even plan on changing my last name. He would just never bother to tell me this because he didn't want to waste all my potential when I still had so much to give to the company. When I got understandably upset about this and told him as much, he just kept bringing up the fact that I was engaged to a good man with good means, and that Fisher would take care of me from now on. My fiancé is an amazing man. I love him, obviously, but that does not mean that I'm signing on to become his dependent little wife the moment we get married. I'm still my own person. Marrying him doesn't erase that or the family I come from. My father refused to entertain it, though, and told me that he would love having me, quote, help out all these years, and I was welcome to keep doing so. But I had to accept the fact that my brother is in charge and support his decision. I thought that I would never be left more speechless than that during my father's retirement party, but once again I've been proven wrong. I don't even know what to think. How long has he felt this way? How did he manage to hide it all this time, and why? Update number 2. I did not make my original post to bash my brother or father, and I'm not making this one for that reason either. When I made my first post, I just wanted a place to vent and maybe some helpful advice from people who might not have been through exactly the same thing, but who were empathetic enough to offer support anywho. With the last update, this became more of a diary or some way for me to write this all out and just make some sense of it. I've never been one for journaling, but maybe this experience has changed. In any case, I have another update. Ellie, the same front of house employee who told me about the rumors of the head chef of one of the locations threatening to quit if he had to deal with CJ anymore, got in touch again with something a little more worrisome. See, CJ messed up. Big time. I don't have all the deets yet, but the gist of it is this. CJ's been a bit of a disaster for as long as he's been training to take over, which at this point is a little over 2 weeks. He's supposed to be getting an idea of how every aspect of the business works. And since we're in the restaurant business, that means dealing with customers and orders. He's been messing up orders nonstop. Almost every ticket he handles has a problem or something sent back. And for the entire time, my father's been making the other employees pick up the slack and, in a couple of instances, take the heat from customers so my father doesn't have to correct CJ in front of guests. This time, though, his mess-up was a little more serious than putting in the wrong drink order. You see, I said I don't have all the details of the exact situation yet or how it happened exactly, but what I've been told is that CJ took someone's order, brought them their food, and shortly after the same customer had to be rushed out of the restaurant by paramedics and taken to the hospital because they had an allergic reaction so severe they almost died. From what I gather, the individual involved is alive. But obviously this whole situation is a huge deal. It's not something that can be taken lightly, and it's not something that our father is going to be able to brush aside with a comped drink and a free dessert. I figured that it's also something to do with my father requesting to speak to me ASAP, since I've been working with him for a lot longer and will have a better grasp of how to handle the situation. Obviously, I'm not sitting here happy about the fact that my brother messed up and somebody got hurt, and I'm prepared to handle this as best as I can for all the parties involved. I'm just glad that maybe this is causing my father to see what I've been trying to tell him and what I have to bring to the table. Anyways, I'll keep you guys updated on the entire loop. Updates number 3. So, I'm going to type this out as calmly as I can and try to make as much sense as I possibly can right now, which might honestly be more effort than it's worth. But I need to do something other than sit here seething while I wait for my fiancé to get home so I can talk to an actual sane human being about what was just asked of me today. So, I think I mentioned in my last post that my brother somehow set off someone's allergy and my father wanted to talk to me. I don't know why. I don't want to double check right now, but I'll edit this later for context if I have to. I thought my father wanted to talk so we could figure out together how to best approach and solve the situation. As I've been so often lately, well, when it comes to my father, of course I was wrong. He didn't want to discuss anything with me. He just wanted me to agree to take the fall for the incident, apologize to the woman who was hurt, and gracefully accept being fired from my position to make the customer see the action was being taken. So, after spending years of my life slaving away at what I thought to be our family business, our family legacy, he wants to throw away every bit of work I've put into this company to cover up for my son, who not even a month ago didn't even care about anything other than the money the business could give him. After everything I've given for this company, for our family, for my only utility to him is to take this fall for his heir? I know my father has always been more lenient with my brother. I know that he's always spent more time bonding over his interest than mine or my sister's. I know that he never bothered with daddy-daughter things as much as he did father-son activities. But I thought that the amount of time we've spent together for the business meant something to him. I thought, well, not that he valued me over my brother, but maybe just a little. I went over to my parents' house with a binder full of crisis communication strategies that I knew would help deal with the situation. I left heartbroken knowing that my father would gladly throw me away to salvage his and his son's reputation. Even my mother, who usually never says a word against my father, tried to speak up for me. But he shut it down so fast that I can almost pretend that she didn't even say a word. I'm nearly 30 years of age at this point, and I've dedicated my entire life to this business. Not out of obligation, but out of love. I love the industry, I love the craft, and I obviously love my family. To have all of that thrown in my face and, quote, if you care about this family at all, you'll do this, is the worst thing anybody could have ever done to me. I don't even know where to go from here. Update number 4. In case it wasn't clear to anyone, I did not agree to take the fall for my brother. That did not stop them from trying anyways by informing the victim, who was hospitalized by my brother's negligence, that it was actually me that caused the contamination and a resulting allergic reaction. I only found out when their lawyer contacted me. It's been weeks of legal headaches because you best believe I'm not going down for this when A, I didn't do anything, and B, I did not agree to take the fall. They were not going to force me into a corner and have me submit like some dutiful daughter. That wealthy fiance my father was so happy about just so happens to have access to some of the best attorneys in the state, buddy, and they've been very helpful in clearing my mess. Well, there's a lot to fit into this, and there's not much space, so, here we go. There are even more details that I'm not yet permitted to speak about publicly or online, but I'll do my best to cover it all. CJ is going to face the consequences of what he did. The easiest way to explain what happened is that his negligence directly caused a customer to receive a plate contaminated with an allergen. It was avoidable and entirely his fault. My father is not going to be able to get away with the fact that he tried to cover it up either. And somehow, on top of it all, my lawyers managed to find out that he's been skirting taxes for basically as long as he's been in business. So now he's going to have to deal with that too, which I've been assured is a criminal charge that's going to earn him a hefty fine. This could have been a simple fix. We could have handled this easily and professionally and made sure that the customer was properly compensated for what had happened and that this never happened again. Instead, my father decides to throw me under the bus for some misogynistic belief that only his son can carry the family legacy, and in doing so made everything so much worse than it ever had to be. The customer is still going to get their compensation, but instead of being able to move on from this as a company, both my brother and father are going to go down, and they have no one to blame but themselves. There's a million other things I have to say about this, and I'll probably think of a million more after that, but I can't keep giving my energy to someone that has evidently never valued it. What does bring me down a little is the fact that with this whole mess, The company is going to suffer, which means all those innocent employees who did nothing to deserve it are going to pay the price of having a boss who got the business involved in a scandal. I wish I could do something for them now. But right now, I have to do what's best for myself and just deal with everything on my plate before I think about anyone else. So yeah, that's it. Somehow, over the course of 5 posts, my whole life got turned upside down, and my father's true colors were revealed. Anyways, guys, thank you for reading. I hope your life is going better than mine is right now. Update number 5. Against all odds, I'm back with another update to what was the most turbulent period of my life, and hopefully ever. Thankfully, this is actually a happy update for me anyways. The biggest change is probably the fact that I'm now the owner and head of the family business. No, my father did not suddenly see the light and decide that I was his destined successor after all. He actually was out of options after being saddled with immense fines for his criminal tax evasion. And when a settlement was finally reached for CJ's case, he just couldn't afford it. CJ obviously could not afford it on his own, since my money that he had was essentially just an allowance our father gave him. With nowhere else to turn, my father came to me. After months of not talking through any means but our lawyers, he showed up at my front door begging me to ask my fiancé to pay off the settlements. Well, we agreed on one condition. We'd give him the money, but not for the settlement. My fiancé offered to buy over the company for me. He tried to convince us to give him the money out of some sense of family, but I reminded him that he did not consider me part of his family since I've been getting married. Eventually, with no other choice, he agreed. All things considered, it was a smooth transition of ownership, since I was already familiar with everyone and everything to do with the company. Well, somehow, I've ended up with the family business, a loving fiancé, and a wonderful future ahead of me. With my father, left with nothing. No company, a son whose settlement still needs to be paid off, criminal charges, a reputation in tatters thanks to the drawn-out court case, and probably a divorce since my mother recently left to live with my sister in Wyoming. At the start of all this, he was the man I used to look up to, the most in the world, the one person whose approval I wanted more than anything. Now I see him for what he is, a selfish, spineless coward who never cared about his family, just himself.